first question that I'm sure you get at every Q&A is, where'd the idea come from?
So, Punks versus Park Ranger kind of feels like a movie that should have already existed. It kind of feels like a movie from the 80s. My classmate, when I was in school, wrote this as a senior screenplay, and I just was so obsessed with the idea, and it brought to mind all these super colorful, crazy visuals. But alas, when we graduated, we didn't know what to do with it. But a couple years later, I'd been producing movies for a while, and I really wanted to direct something, and I remembered his script, so I called him and asked if we could work on it together.
Did the script already have the punk aesthetic built into it, or is that something you brought to the project?
It was always like a story of punks versus Park Ranger, but certainly as Heather and I embarked on making the movie, we were thinking about, like, on every level how we could, in terms of making the movie,
I would like to jump in there in a second. It's
behind the camera.
They should know that you yourself are punk as fuck, as is Jocko, who co-wrote the film. So it was there structurally within the material itself, that kind of attitude, that anarchy spirit, and the spirit of also Glass Eye Pix, who worked on it.
Yes.
So it was always there. It was always there. When I read it, it was fucking there. That's why I wanted to make it.
Nice. And before we turn it over to the audience, the film that's on the screen, this is one that I never get asked, and is it the film you had in your head?
It very much is, actually. Like, the script that I wrote, Chelsea had a mohawk in. That's like pretty much the only difference. Other than that, it was very close to what the actual script was, which was very cool.
Nice. Is there anything from the audience? Don't be shy. Come on. There's got to be somebody.
I'll go up.
There's one right up there, up in the top left. Or right.
Yeah. How did Andrew get involved in the film with regards to the music?
The question is, how did Andrew and Lynn get involved in music?
Yeah, so Sam Zimmerman from Shudder, I'm friends with him and he's friends with them, and he knew we were working on a punk rock horror movie, and he suggested that I chat with Wade. And then, Wade and I totally hit it off, and then Wade brought on Andrew, and it was match made in heaven.
Nice. Can you actually elaborate a little bit on how the process of writing the music worked between New York and Toronto?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Wade, Andrew, and I didn't meet in person until we were at South by Southwest premiering the movie. So it was all done over the phone and via Skype and everything. But essentially, when we agreed we wanted to work together. I was like a big fan of Wade's and everything, so I was super psyched to work with him. And we agreed we were gonna do this before we started production. So he actually was able to write like the song that they're singing in the van and stuff before we went into production. And then they were working on cues while we were shooting, so that when I started editing, I had all this music to work with, which is really great because, often directors get really married to their temp music, but I had all this like actual music we could really use off the bat, which was awesome. And then, eventually I sent them the cut of the movie, and then they kind of tweaked, and then we talked a lot, and but working with them was awesome. It was so much fun.
Heather, how did your own personal touch come to the project as a producer? What do you think you brought to the table?
Well, I was gonna, as I mentioned before, is that within the material itself, I was very shocked when I was giving notes or feedback to Jenn at the Irish Embassy at Fantasia, when we were at Fantasia Film Fest, because it's like, how did you know my asshole punk friends? Because that's what it felt like, because my scene is like the New York City scene in New York City, and there was such authenticity and such energy in those characters, and I loved them, and then I felt like, God, I also want to be the Ranger, because I identify deeply as a slasher, even though I am all chaotic and an anarchist. I am like very tall and from New Jersey, like Jason Voorhees. And when I wrote down on like the margins of Jenn's thing, it's like, well, here's what the marketing should look like, but it felt like the sort of music, because the music out in New York City is it's hardcore. If you were watching the credits, you will see that the Dago abortions are on the fucking soundtrack. So the stuff I brought is just Jenn was very open to want the community to be a part of it, and our punk scene, to bring a band down from Rochester to capture that live, because that was a live show, and just have Mida Goodwin, the music supervisor, bring all that music together, and Wade and Andrew wrote two things. So it's just the openness for Jenn's sort of like creativity. She's like, bring me all these damn gremlins to like do the flyer designs and hand screen print everyone's gear.
Nice. Anybody from the audience, right there?
The gore effects were tremendous. Can you tell us about the geniuses behind that?
The question is about the geniuses behind the gore effects.
Yeah, that's Brian Spears and Pete Gerner, who do tons of horror movies. They also do like Marvel TV shows and stuff like that. The company I produced for, Glass Eye Pix, we've worked with them for many, many years, and I've worked with them as a producer on certain projects, so it was really cool to be able to work with them as a director. But we really wanted to like have this kind of comic book aesthetic, and they, totally approached the blood effects like that as well. And also what's really cool is Brian suggested in prep, he was like, the Lost Boys, the movie, put glitter in their blood. And I was like, oh my God, we gotta have glitter in the blood. So there's glitter in that blood.
Was the wolf hard to direct?
Actually, I was really, first of all, props to Heather, she got the wolf. Yay, Heather.
You're just walking around.
What was so important to me was that the wolf and Chelsea shared an eye line. I was like, we just gotta get this wolf, so like look at Chelsea in the eye. It's so important to that shot. And actually that shot was fairly easy to shoot. The harder one was the other one where we're just like on the wolf, because wolves are like really freaked out by cameras and they're like, what is this thing coming at me? So that was the harder shot. It's surprisingly really easy to get a wolf to howl. All you have to do is like howl at the wolf and then the wolf howls back at you. So that's something I learned while shooting.
And if you want to visit those wolves, they're 3 hours from Montreal.
Nice. Wait, it wasn't the sanctuary in Minden, was it?
It's the wildlife sanctuary, yes, in upstate New York.
Oh, the one in upstate New York. Okay,
Yes.
got it. All right, anyone else from the audience? I think I saw one back there somewhere. There, right there.
So was the movie always originally set as a period piece in the 80s, or did that come later?
The question is, was the movie always intended to be set in the 80s? Is the movie set in the 80s?
Yeah, the way that I talk about it, good question, and the way that I talked about it on set, because everybody, all the crew members and everybody's trying to do their research and make it like very accurate and stuff. I talked about it as 80s dreamland, which is not real 80s, but just to the left of reality. So no cell phones, fuck cell phones, I hate cell phones. And, but they have a boombox and all these things. And very inspired by Lisa Frank also, who was my hero as an 8-year-old.
I feel there's lots of Lisa Frank fans out there. Let's hear you. Rainbow Unicorn.
All right, anyone else? There's one over here, 2 over there, but we'll go the row behind you and then we'll come to you.
So the wolf was easy to film. What was the hardest scene to film?
The question is, what was the hardest scene to film?
I would say, so at the end, when you're outside the cabin, and you have the fire tower in the cabin, that's shot on top of this place called Hunter Mountain. And getting up there were no roads up there, so we all had to hike like 2 hours, like very vertically into the air, and the crew had to like carry all their equipment like 2 hours up the mountain. And I would say collectively that was the hardest. Just in terms, like we got there, it was fine, but getting to the location was very difficult.
That was your Fitzcarraldo scene.
Yeah.
Over here, there was that question. We have time for one more after this one.
Mine's kind of in connection. How long did you spend filming in the woods? Did you guys actually kind of camp out in that area, or?
Well, what was super cool is we were able to shoot pretty chronologically, which is like a dream as a filmmaker. Usually you're kind of all over the place depending on actor schedules and whatnot. But we shot all the club stuff first, and then we all went upstate together. We shot all the punk stuff that the Ranger's not a part of. Then we brought the Ranger in, and then we started killing everybody off one by one, which was like, had extra resonance, because when they were done, when they were killed, they was like, bye, and then they were like leaving the set, so it was sad for everybody. But we stayed in the Best Western Plus in Kingston, New York, which is my favorite hotel. They have breakfast, really good breakfast. I highly suggest it if you're making a movie in that area.
Give it up for the Best Western plug. It's in upstate New York. There's a question up here. This is going to be the last one.
Yeah, I just wondering if you can talk about how you found your actor to play the Ranger.
Yeah.
Did you bring the comedy to it? Like, was that always the intention of funniness?
Yeah, so Jeremy Home, he's in Mr. Robot and House of Cards, and I was just a total fan of those shows. And he was friends with my co-writer Jocko, and so as Jocko and I were writing the script, Jocko was like, "Yo, look at this guy! Like, he'd be great as the Ranger." So we were really writing it with Jeremy in mind. And finally, the day came when we felt the script was ready to show to him, and he totally connected with it. He totally connected to that tone that we were after. And we took a meeting with him, and he just started going into character as the Ranger in that first meeting. And I was totally freaked out by him, and I was like, "Yes, we found the Ranger. This is him."
Would you ever do a sequel, a Rihanna Ranger or something?
Oh my God, I love that. Now that you've come up with that name, then yes, absolutely.
Nice. All right.
I think there has to be so many sequels we have to get the Ranger to space. Right?
Space Ranger. It fucking works perfect. Okay.
Love it, Jen. They love it.
All right. Let's give it up for Jenn and Heather and the Ranger. Okay. One more
One
thing.
more quick thing. The Ranger is coming to home video in Canada thanks to A71, and that's the first time this is announced.
All right. Come back for the dark.